Well, hello again. Here we are, back at the scene of the crime. Today I want to talk about planning and the importance of planning for our sons and daughters. And I feel a bit bogus when I do this because in my own life I don't plan very much. And if I do plan, I don't seem to plan very well. But I think that we really do need to appreciate and understand that when a person needs such intentional kind of thinking and steps to make something happen for him or her, planning is actually what we need to do. And I suppose, like a lot of other things I've spoken about, there aren't that many people around who know how to do good planning, you know. And I think good planning means that we're really working on the real skills and abilities of that individual, and we're listening to the way that person wants to live their lives, and we're taking into account all those things. And of course, always take into account what family are feeling as well. So that good planning is driven by the family's goals and ideas about what might happen for their son or daughter. So I think we need to think through quite a lot before we start planning. Then one of the first things is who's going to help us with this? You know, who will actually facilitate a day or a couple of hours of planning, and how we make sure that what we plan is doable and right for our son or daughter. How will we check if we make a plan? We've got to put it into place. How will we implement that plan? And how will we check to make sure that what we're doing, or what we said we were going to do is what we're doing, and it's actually working to achieve the goals? And what do we want to see happen? You have to work out before you start, what are you planning for? So it might be that the person's going to move out, but not for everybody. It might be that you want to start to build a really great support team around that person. You want to work out how to make that happen. You want to see maybe the person to build more skill, a different skill or a level of skill that would build an independence. The person might be going to get a job, all sorts of things. These can be the end, or they can be part of the overarching plan for a bigger goal. And I think when we do this, when we actually make the plan, we start to crystallize our ideas about what we would like to see happen for our sons and daughters. Because you can kind of be thinking, oh, I'd like to see this happen. But if you haven't really thought it through, how will it happen? Because as far as I can see, nothing happens in this field. Nothing happens for people with disability unless somebody is taking a lead role and trying to work out what is important here. And, you know, I've spoken in another video about the fact that the lack of good planning and the lack of direction for support workers leads us to the view that actually people will be doing the entertainment model, just wandering around the world not being very entertaining, or they will be just taking things into their own hands, which is not appropriate. And so very, very important to start thinking about this in this way. The other thing to think about is like, well, how will we do the plan? What kind of planning process will we use? I've used two different processes throughout the years I've worked with people with disability and for my own sons and daughters. The first is PATH, which is a very North American kind of planning process. It's about following the North Star, which we don't have. Maybe we're following the Southern Cross. I don't know. PATH means something, but I'm very, very bad at acronyms. I don't ever know what they mean. So I can't tell you what they mean, but you could look that up, and I'll put it in the comments, actually. I'll go and find it and put it in the comments for you. Okay. I just don't like acronyms. But anyway, that's my favourite. I love working with PATH. So PATH works on the idea of working with the individual themselves and their families, regardless of how difficult it might be to think about how we would get those ideas and thoughts from the individual, to work out some goals and a time frame. So do you want to make a plan for a year, 6 months, 2 years, 5 years, whatever it is? You have to work out what that is. So the beginning process is, what do you want to achieve, and what is the time frame for achieving that? That's the first step, I think, in PATH. And then we go back, so it's kind of like a linear process on butcher's paper. You know how much people love butcher's paper. I'm a bit keen on it myself. So basically, in the left-hand column, the first column, we're going to write down all the gifts and talents of the individual, all the things they're interested in, all the things they're good at, everything that we can think of about what's happening right then. And then the second column on the left-hand side is going to be about what's happening now. So does the person have any money for support? Is anything happening right now? Are there some things that are part of these goals that are already on their way? Anything at all that's important to the longer term process gets put there. Then the third column is who will we ask to help us with this? So who do we need to be thinking about? So if you've got a goal that says you want to see this person being much more communicative over the next year, it might be that you're thinking that you would want to enroll a speech pathologist to help build a communication system, or you might want to engage some low-tech communication aids, or all sorts of things you might be thinking of. So you'd be thinking you probably want a speech pathologist to help with that. If it's a little child, like a little one, and we're trying to work out how to get that child school ready, we'd probably want to see that child in like a regular included childcare so that they're flooded with language, for example. So engaging a childcare centre that's going to be competent and helpful in helping our child, little one, have those kind of opportunities. There's other things, like is there a neighbour who takes an interest, or a person who you know is very interested in the thing that your son or daughter is interested in, who you could go and ask for advice. It might be that's all you're going to do is go and ask for advice, or you might actually try and see if you can subtly get that person a bit more engaged with your son or daughter, because as we know, there is nothing more powerful than putting two people together who are interested in the same thing. And and then the next one is, what is it? It's who you're going to ask for help. What are your first steps? Well, the first things that need to happen to make these goals start to work. And then you ask yourself these questions. What would be happening, say it's a 12-month goal, what would have happened in 3 months that would reassure us that we're moving ahead? What would happen in 6 months? What would happen in 9 months? And I would really strongly suggest, if you're going to do this process, that you would put the dates down when you're going to meet to look at those things. Even if you can't meet on the date that you said, you then can postpone it or change the date, but you have got things set up to make those things happen. This makes everyone so much more accountable. I'm very keen on that. And then basically it's like getting to work, getting to see, who's going to do what and how. And this can be very helpful. And by the way, for those parents who always think they have to do everything, remembering if your son or daughter has got support and there's some legwork that needs to be done, you don't have to go and do those things. You could set that task for your son or daughter and his or her support. I know, amazing idea, hey? Don't have to do everything. And then the other thing that people use is a person-centered planning approach, which I also love and use. And that's really about looking at the gifts and talents of the individual and the interests and working on a plan that really reflects who this person is. And that one is just as lovely. They're just really, really good. But then you might just have your own take on it. Or you might buy one of those kits for yourself that says how you make a plan. You could put that in place for your own son or daughter. So I think one of the big things about the question that says who will help is that maybe for the first time we will be pushed into looking outside ourselves for people who might be able to help. It's not always going to be the speech pathologist. It could be the next door neighbour. It could be a school friend. It could be someone who's showing an interest. It could be a brother or sister, cousin, extended family. It could be anyone that you think can help. And so maybe for the first time you could ask people to help but have a specific task. And sometimes I think in that gift of asking, we have to be better at having a specific thing to ask for rather than just saying, can you help me? So, so I think that's a very powerful thing to do. And I think that question about how will we know that it's working is a powerful question, isn't it? What are the measures that will help us understand that? So I think that we should really be thinking about making a plan that's skills-based, has very high expectations for the person. If you find yourself saying, oh, no, I don't think he could do that, be careful. Be careful. Just find yourself, give yourself a little bit of release of fear, and maybe just think you could just set your goals a little bit higher. You might be very, very surprised. The next thing I think is to be opportunistic. Once you've actually worked out what you want to achieve, look around to see who's around. And there might be an opportunity coming up, or a person, or a place, or something that's going to make this opportunity even more powerful. So I think being opportunistic is an amazing thing. Daring to ask is an amazing thing. people can say yes or no. It's your business to ask, and absolutely none of your business what that person says back. And if they say no, you have to be very careful not to start to interpreting what that person's saying to you. They're not necessarily saying, I'm not interested in your child. They're just saying no. So I think one of the powerful things about getting into these processes and knowing that some of what we're going to have to do is ask other people for help is to not get too tied up in whether they say yes or no, but just asking the question. And I think that that's a pretty powerful way to start thinking about the future for your son or daughter. By the way, you can also use those processes for yourself. You can start to work on yourself using that path plan process. I've done that myself a few times just to try and get a bit focused, especially when I was starting this YouTube channel and I wasn't really sure about, how to get started. I started by putting my goals down and getting together. And I told you, I'm not very good at goals, so my goal was to start this YouTube channel on the 1st of January. Wasn't ready. Didn't have it going for me, babies. So it took a little while longer to start, and now it doesn't even matter because I'm doing it. And so in this process, don't get too precious. Don't get too tied up in dates and times. You do want to have some dates and times. You do want to have some transparency. You do want to be able to check to make sure people are doing what they said they do. But actually, all you really want to be seeing is that things are moving forward in an orderly fashion, or maybe a chaotic fashion. Who knows? Well, that's all I'm going to say about that today. I hope that was helpful. Love to hear your comments if you've done any planning or if you'd like to do planning. And that's your Bloomin' Lot. Bye.